What do a Mississippi chain gang, an astronaut orbiting Jupiter, and two stoners fleeing Guantanamo Bay all have in common?
Well, I mean, they are all secretly operating on the exact same 2,800-year-old software.
Right. Which sounds like the setup to a really strange joke, but it's actually this fascinating secret in modern storytelling.
Yeah, it is essentially the hidden architectural scaffolding of cinema.
Exactly. And that brings us to the mission for this deep dive, because, it is one thing to take a 2,800-year-old story and just adapt it directly.
Right, like Christopher Nolan is actually doing that right now.
Yeah, he's making a literal, straightforward adaptation of Homer's ancient Greek epic, the Odyssey. He's got Anne Hathaway playing Penelope.
And Robert Pattinson is playing this highly menacing version of the aggressive suitor Antinesis, right?
Yeah. But today we aren't looking at literal adaptations. We are taking a stack of research, including this really fantastic Esquire piece, to explore how this ancient blueprint shapes modern Hollywood storytelling in complete secret.
Right, because we're looking at films that take this classic journeyman framework and just get outlandishly creative with it.
Right, because not every movie with a road trip is automatically an Odyssey.
Oh, absolutely not. It's vital to draw that line right out of the gate. I mean, the word Odyssey gets thrown around in casual conversation to describe basically any long trip or, mildly frustrating errand.
Yeah, like going to the DMV.
Exactly. But structurally, narratively, it means something incredibly specific. It's an engine.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because I think people misuse the concept all the time. Think about it this way. If you have a terrible commute home from work, where there's gridlock traffic, your AC breaks, you spill hot coffee all over your lap.
That's just a bad day.
Right. An Odyssey is when your car breaks down, you get chased by a pack of wild dogs, and your GPS actively tries to drive you into a lake.
The homicidal GPS is the key distinction there.
Right.
Because an Odyssey requires active, outrageous circumstances. It requires colorful, hostile foes who represent different psychological tests. And it requires these compounding, almost absurd detours where all hope seems completely lost.
Yeah, and to help us track this, the research lays out this fantastic objective metric called the Odyssey test.
Right. So for a narrative to truly qualify as being in this specific mythological tradition, it needs exactly 3 things.
Let's lay them out for everyone.
Okay, so first, you need a hero who is destined for home.
The homeward trajectory.
Yes, that trajectory is everything. Because if they are just wandering, it's an exploration. But if they are fighting to get back to a specific place, that creates the necessary gravitational pull.
Makes total sense.
Right. And second, you need intense side quests and sidekicks. The journey cannot just be a straight line. The tension comes entirely from the delays and the temptations that try to pull the hero off the path.
And 30.
Third, you need a cyclops.
A cyclops. Not just like a metaphor for a big problem, but a singular, recognizable, monstrous obstacle that directly mirrors the one-eyed giant from the original epic.
Exactly.
And this brings us perfectly into the first film in our stack. It's a movie that wears its ancient inspiration relatively plainly, but in doing so, it proves a fascinating point about how deeply this blueprint is hardwired into us.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about the Coen brothers' masterpiece from the year 2000, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yes.
Which is such a brilliant starting point because it translates ancient Greece directly into the American South during the Great Depression.
Yeah, when you think about it, the Depression-era South has its own deep mythological weight.
Totally.
Yeah.
You've got the Dust Bowls, folklore, wandering musicians, larger-than-life outlaws. It's the perfect soil for an epic.
And the character parallels here aren't just, clever. They function identically to the ancient archetypes.
Right, so the protagonist is Ulysses Everett McGill, and Ulysses is literally just the Latin version of the name Odysseus.
Oh, wow, right.
Yeah. He is this dapper, fast-talking fugitive who escapes a Mississippi chain gang with one singular goal.
To reunite with his wife.
Exactly, to reunite with his wife.
And her name is Penny, which is clearly a play on Penelope, Odysseus' wife, back in Ithaca.
Right. And in Homer's epic, Penelope is fending off all these aggressive suitors trying to steal her estate because Odysseus has been missing for years.
Which is Robert Pattinson's character in the upcoming Nolan movie.
Exactly. But in Oh Brother, Penny's suitor is Vernon T. Waldrop, who looks like a beanpole, but he is surprisingly lethal in a fistfight.
Yeah, he is. But wait, why does the hero need sidekicks? Like, if it's a deeply personal journey home, wouldn't it be more dramatic if Ulysses was entirely alone?
Well, if he were alone, he'd only have his own mind to battle.
Oh, I see.
Right. The second rule of the Odyssey test requires sidekicks because they act as external manifestations of the hero's internal flaws. So Ulysses is joined by two fellow prison escapees.
Right, Delmar and Pete.
And the side quests they go on are direct mirrors of Homer's epic because they test specific human weaknesses.
Like the sirens. They face sweet-singing sirens, washing clothes in a stream, tempting them off their path with comfort and lust.
Yeah, and they encounter a manic, depressive bank robber, representing the temptation of easy wealth and chaos.
And there's that incredible moment where they actually believe one of the sidekicks has been magically transformed into a toad.
Yes, which mirrors Odysseus's men being turned into swine by the witch Circe.
See, I always thought that was just a bizarre, surreal joke in the movie.
Well, it's funny, but it's doing really heavy narrative lifting. You see, in the ancient world, the ultimate fear of a long voyage was that the harshness of the sea would strip away your humanity.
Wow.
Yeah, becoming an animal means you completely forget your home. It's the ultimate delay.
That completely changes how I view that scene. But okay, we have to talk about the third rule of the test.
Yeah.
The Cyclops.
Right, Big Dan Teague.
Yes. They cross paths with Big Dan Teague, who is this massive, imposing Bible huckster. And he wears an eye patch in daily life.
Played brilliantly by John Goodman.
So brilliantly. But more than that, he is a high-ranking member of the Ku Klux Klan. The film explicitly uses the KKK as a stand-in for the terrifying, monstrous obstacle of the Cyclops.
Exactly. It takes the ultimate societal villain of that era and utilizes it as the mythological monster. They even note the dark humor that he only needs one hole cut into his Klan hood.
That is wild.
Right, because we are looking at the mechanics of storytelling here. Big Dan functions mechanically just like the Cyclops in the cave.
Right, he traps the heroes, he overpowers them physically, he hurls them around.
And the parallel of his defeat is brilliant. In Homer's epic, Odysseus defeats the Cyclops by blinding its one eye with a flame-sharpened branch.
And in the film, Big Dan is crushed at a chaotic rally when a giant, burning wooden cross collapses directly onto him. The fire and the wood conquer the singular glaring eye.
It is so perfectly constructed.
Okay, but here is where it gets really interesting and where I actually have to admit total disbelief at something in our research.
Oh, what's that?
Well, the Coen brothers have famously claimed they never actually bothered to read a translation of the Odyssey before writing this script.
Right, they said they just flipped through a classic comics version of it.
Yeah. I don't buy it.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like successfully building a perfect functioning replica of a Ferrari because you once saw like a drawing of one on a diner placemat.
It sounds impossible, yeah.
How could they hit all these structural beats so flawlessly without studying the textbook?
I totally get the skepticism, but it actually proves the most profound point of this entire deep dive.
Yes.
The concept of cultural osmosis.
Okay.
See, Homer's tale is nearly 3 millennia old. It has been retold, fractured, and repurposed so many times that a master storyteller doesn't need to read the original text to understand how it breathes.
We just instinctively know this structure.
Exactly. The desperate hero, the flawed sidekicks, the compounding delays, the monstrous obstacles. These are narrative beats that we have internalized as a society. It's part of our collective narrative DNA.
So it's less like building a Ferrari from a drawing and more like, I don't know, knowing how to swim.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need a physics manual on buoyancy to keep your head above water. It's just a rhythm you can feel.
Precisely. The human brain understands the rhythm of an odyssey because it's how we naturally process long, arduous struggles.
That makes sense. And if the Coen brothers proved that this ancient formula is hardwired into our cultural past, then another filmmaker on our list proves it's also our inevitable future.
Right.
Because when you strip away the dirt roads, the train tracks, and the oceans, what is the ultimate terrifying unknown?
Deep space.
Deep space. So let's pivot to 1968 to Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke's masterpiece, 2001, A Space Odyssey.
The transition from the sea to the stars here is just so conceptually rich.
It really is.
There is this incredible insight from an interview Stanley Kubrick gave back in 1965 while he was first conceptualizing the story with Clarke.
What did he say?
Kubrick realized that for the ancient Greeks, the vast, uncharted stretches of the ocean held the exact same mystery and terror that outer space holds for our generation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The far-flung islands that Odysseus washed up on were just as alien and deadly to the Greeks as Jupiter is to us. Space is literally just the new ocean.
That reframes the entire visual language of the movie for me. The journey of the astronaut is fundamentally the journey of the ancient sailor, just on a massively larger canvas.
Exactly. And 2001 spans these massive, terrifying distances of time.
Right, starts eons ago with ape-like proto-humans on Earth. They are starving, they're terrified of predators.
And then they discover this mysterious, flawless, black monolith.
Yes, and it spurs an evolutionary leap. By touching it, they realize that old bones can be used as tools, specifically weapons, to beat their rivals for resources.
And that realization leads to what is arguably the most famous edit in cinema history.
The bone throw.
Yes. A victorious proto-human tosses a clobbering bone high into the air. As it falls, rotating against the sky, the film cuts instantly to a drifting, cylindrical space station orbiting Earth in the year 2001.
Millions of years of human evolution pass in a fraction of a second.
Exactly. One tool simply becomes another. It establishes that this particular odyssey isn't just about a guy trying to get home. It's about the entire human race trying to navigate its existence.
Right, and the story continues on the moon, where humans dig up a second monolith. The moment sunlight hits this thing, it emits a piercing, deafening radio signal aimed directly at the planet Jupiter.
Which is terrifying.
Think about the implication of the monolith. Some superior, incomprehensible intelligence is watching us. They left this thing buried on the moon, knowing that one day, once humanity advanced enough to leave our home planet, we would find it.
Right, it was biding its time.
But viewing the monolith as a Trojan horse is a genuinely terrifying concept. It implies that humanity invited this evolutionary cheat code into our existence, completely unaware of what unknowable thing was hiding inside it.
That is the perfect way to look at it, because it sets up the central, desperate quest.
Right, Dr. Dave Bowman is sent on a deep space mission to Jupiter to investigate this signal.
And fulfilling the first rule of our Odyssey test, Bowman isn't some grand conqueror. He doesn't really understand the full cosmic scope of what he's sailing into.
No, not at all.
Ultimately, he is just a sailor lost in the deep, trying to survive the mission and eventually get home.
Which brings us to the Cyclops.
Yes, it does.
And it's one of the most iconic villains in film history, HAL 9000.
Right. HAL is the artificial intelligence program running the ship. And how does he observe the human crew?
Through a single, unblinking, malevolently glowing red lens.
He is literally the one-eyed monster guarding the cave of the spaceship.
Yeah. When he realizes the humans might jeopardize the mission, he goes to war against these deep space sailors.
And just like Odysseus, Bowman is the only one who survives the Cyclops.
But to get to the end of his journey, he doesn't just sail into a harbor. He ventures through a reality-bending warp, the famous Stargate sequence.
Which functions exactly like the Charybdis whirlpool that Odysseus has to navigate in the Strait of Messina.
Oh man, right.
It's a chaotic, swirling threshold that completely breaks down the laws of physics. When Bowman passes through it, he pinballs through time and space. He ages rapidly in a surreal alien room.
He is forced to confront concepts that the human mind simply cannot fathom.
And then, eventually, he is released.
Like how in the original poem, the nymph Calypso eventually frees Odysseus to return home.
Exactly. Here, Bowman is sent back to Earth. But he doesn't return as Dave Bowman the astronaut.
No, he returns fundamentally, molecularly changed. He arrives back in orbit as the glowing space child.
Right.
So what is Kubrick actually saying here by applying this ancient blueprint to the distant future?
Well, it proves that the Odyssey isn't just a physical survival guide about avoiding monsters. By applying the structure to the infinite vacuum of space, Kubrick reveals it as an existential framework.
An existential framework.
Yeah, it's a blueprint for how humanity confronts the truly unknowable. How do we test the absolute limits of the human mind?
The scale in 2001 is infinitely larger, but the core truth remains the same. The journey changes the travelers so profoundly that the person who left home no longer exists.
Exactly.
So we've seen conscious homage with the Coen brothers, and we've seen this grand existential sci-fi elevation with Kubrick.
Right.
But the true power of this ancient framework is that it operates even when filmmakers aren't trying to be Homeric at all. It just seeps into the storytelling.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, and this brings us to what we can call the accidental odyssey, which takes us from the sublime right down to the utterly absurd.
I love this transition.
We're talking about the 2008 high-stakes, low-brow comedy, Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay.
This is where the structural theory really gets put to the test, because the directors here created a sequel to a movie that was already a chaotic road trip. But this sequel crosses the threshold into a true mythological odyssey because of the highly specific structural details it accidentally relies on to build tension.
Right, so the inciting incident happens when best friends Harold and Kumar are falsely arrested on a flight to Amsterdam because a bong is mistaken for a bomb.
Which operates as a satire on xenophobia, the mistreatment and suspicion of the other. It's that societal misunderstanding that lands them in an offshore military prison.
But narratively speaking, their overarching goal fits the Odyssey test flawlessly. They just want to escape and get Kumar back home to the arms of his girlfriend before she marries the wrong guy.
It's the Penelope dynamic all over again.
Yes, that homeward-bound engine is running at full speed.
And then the delays begin. They make a highly dangerous escape by sea, landing in the swamps of the American South.
They encounter a group of literal sirens, temptresses at a brothel, who try to derail their mission.
And perhaps most mythologically, they are aided by figures that function exactly like the chaotic, meddling gods of Mount Olympus.
Oh my gosh, yes. We get a hyper-sexed, sociopathic version of Neil Patrick Harris playing himself.
And a bizarre, erratic version of then-President George W. Bush.
Right. These figures swoop in with immense power, either aiding or obstructing our mortal heroes on an absolute whim, completely detached from the consequences.
That is perfect.
And we absolutely cannot forget the Cyclops. They end up trapped in a cave-like basement, and they face a strange, deformed mutant kid who emits a terrifying, high-pitched whistle.
And his name is Cyrus. Literally Cyclops.
It's hiding right in plain sight.
Oh.
But I have to call a timeout here. I have to challenge this premise.
Go for it.
When I first looked at this, my immediate reaction was deep skepticism.
Sure.
The original Harold and Kumar movie was already a chaotic road trip with wrong turns and dangerous foes. Since nobody associated with this sequel intentionally meant to connect these two stoners with Homer's epic poem, aren't we just experiencing pareidolia?
Pareidolia.
The psychological phenomenon where you look at a random cloud,
Right.
your brain forces you to see a face.
Right.
If you squint hard enough, isn't literally every road trip movie secretly the Odyssey?
That is a completely valid challenge. It's incredibly easy to project the hero's journey onto almost anything if you force the puzzle pieces together.
Right.
But what counters that skepticism, what elevates this from pareidolia to genuine structural phenomenon, is the density of highly specific tropes.
The density of them.
Yes. It's not just that they go on a trip and face generic problems, it's that they make a sea escape. They face literal sirens offering sexual temptation to delay them.
Right.
They interact with chaotic, godlike figures who control the world around them, and they are trapped by a literal one-eyed obstacle named Psy.
Okay, I see your point.
The inclusion of all the specific elements entirely by accident proves something remarkable about how writers create conflict.
Wait, so you're saying that when writers sit down to write escalating comedic chaos, they accidentally reinvent the wheel?
Precisely. This specific hero's gauntlet is so universal, it has become our default, unconscious blueprint for processing chaos.
Wow.
If you need to keep your characters away from home and you need the stakes to get higher and higher, your brain naturally builds the path that Homer paved 2,800 years ago. Delay, temptation, meddling powers, monstrous obstacle.
That is wild. It's like the architectural scaffolding of storytelling is completely universal.
Yes.
You can build a sweeping Southern Depression-era folktale on it. You can build a stark, existential sci-fi masterpiece on it, or you can build an absurd, raunchy stoner comedy on it.
The bones of the house hold up the roof no matter what ridiculous color you paint the walls.
Right. Whether it's a chain gang fleeing through the mud of Mississippi, a lonely astronaut navigating the rings of Jupiter, or two guys running from the authorities across the country, Homer's epic remains the ultimate scaffolding.
Because fundamentally, it's how we make sense of a world that feels vast, hostile, and intent on keeping us away from where we belong.
So you, the listener, next time you're stuck in traffic on a terrible commute, ask yourself, are you just having a bad day, or are you in the middle of an odyssey?
Hopefully just a bad day.
Let's hope. But if you look at the movies you love, this deep dive is going to fundamentally change how you watch them. The next time you're sitting in a theater and you see a hero facing outrageous compounding delays on their way home, you are going to recognize that ancient Greek machinery humming under the hood.
You're going to start looking for the Cyclops in everything.
And you will almost certainly find it. Because that journey isn't just Greek. It is the human journey.
Absolutely.
But I want to leave you with a final thought today, something to mull over the next time you watch one of these films.
What's that?
Well, we've spent all this time talking about heroes fighting desperately through unimaginable circumstances just to return home. But consider the intense detours, the reality-bending warps, the sheer psychological trauma of the monsters they face. If everyone who survives an Odyssey comes back fundamentally, permanently changed, like Dave Bowman returning as the glowing space child, totally transformed by what he endured,
Yeah.
does the home they fought so hard to get back to even exist for them anymore? Once you've survived the Cyclops, can you ever truly return to the same Ithaca?